So in this video we'll be going through how to draw a pie chart from a frequency table. Now a pie chart is a common statistical diagram used to represent the spread or popularity of groups from a set of data. Now at a basic level, a circle may be pre-drawn for you and split into parts to make it easier for you to work out how many sections refer to each subgroup. Now at a regular or a high level, you'll need to draw your own circle and need to calculate the size of an angle for each group that it needs to be before drawing the pie chart for the data set. Now there are some formulas that you do need to learn. Now as I mentioned, there are two types of questions you could get asked. So one will be easier where the circle's been drawn for you and it's already kind of pre-split into certain parts. Now if that is the case, then what we need to do is we need to use the following formula. Now that is that the size of each group in parts will be the frequency divided by the total frequency multiplied by the total number of sections. Or alternately, what you could do is do the total frequency divided by the total number of sections and then use that to find the number of people in each section. Now more often than not, you're going to have to draw your own circle, or you may get a circle that's already pre-drawn for you, but you need to work out what the angles are going to be, and this is the main formula that you need to remember. Now I strongly recommend you have this in your notes when it comes to drawing a pie chart, and that is that the size of an angle for a group is the frequency divided by the total of all the frequencies added together, and we multiply that by 360. Now this fraction, what we call here, is basically the proportion of that group compared to the entire total, and obviously then we're multiplying that by 360 because there are 360 degrees in a circle, and that's what we're kind of dividing it to see how many angles the proportion is relevant to. So let's have a look at an example question. So in terms of our first one, it says complete the table and draw a pie chart to represent the data. Now our pie chart is already pre-drawn for us and it's already split into 10 sections. So first things first, what we need to do is look at see if we've got the total, which we have. So we've got 50 bits of data, and what I've got is I've got 10 sections. So if I've got 50 people or 50 students and I've got 10 sections, I've got 50 divided by 10, so that equals there are 5 people per section. So to work out how many sections there are for each of these manufacturers of cars, so here I'm looking at how many 5s go into 10, well that's going to be 2, how many 5s go into 15, that's going to be 3, how many 5s go into 5, that's going to be 1, and how many 20s go into 5, how many 5s go into 20 rather, and that's going to be 4. So from this, what I can then do is now, rather than working with the angles, I'm now looking at the sections. So BMW is going to be 2 sections, so I can just highlight 2 sections and label that BMW. Now if you don't have to colour it in, but I certainly would mark it, emphasise the mark. So if I just kind of get a thicker pen, what I would do is I would emphasise, again with a ruler, not setting a very good example, and just making those 2 sections stand out for BMW. The next one, I've got 3 sections for Mercedes, so just quickly shading those 3. Or what I can do is just emphasize the 3 sections, and then I just want to label that Mercedes. Now the labeling is the most important part, but also emphasizing that you have highlighted that they are 3 sections. And then for Porsche or Porsche, depending on how you prefer to call it, that's going to be 1. So I can label that Porsche or Porsche. And emphasize that line there. Then I've got 4 slots left, or 4 sections, let's say, for Ferrari, which is the case, and we've got to do that in red. And once I've highlighted those, I can then just label that as Ferrari. And there we go, there's our completed pie chart. So moving on to our next example. So again here, in this example here, we've got percentages rather than frequencies. Now this works in exactly the same way. So first things first, let's look at our total frequency, which in this case is going to be 100%. And that's our total. and the frequencies again are just the percentages. Now for this, what I need to do, I can count up how many sections I've got, which I've got 10 sections, and I've got 100%. So 100% divided by 10 equals 10% per section. So then in terms of the column here, I've got to see how many 10s go into 20, well that's going to be 2. How many 10s go into 40, that's going to be 4. How many 10s go into 25, that's going to be 2.5. How many 10s go into 5, that's going to be 0.5. And how many 10s go into 10, that's going to be 1. So once I've worked out the sections, I then need to colour in my, or shade in my pie chart. So 11 to 14 is 2 sections. So again, highlighting those 2 sections and labeling it as 11 to 14. The next section, which is 15 to 19, so that's 4 sections. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, label that as 15 to 19. And the next one, which is 2.5. Now this one is a little bit tricky. So again, I need to try and get a straight edge and looking for halfway through. So we can just join those points up. Yeah, and hopefully yours is going to be a lot neater than mine. And we're shading in 2.5. So that's 1, 2, and there's my. And again, I'm going to label that 20 to 24. The next one, which is 5%, which is a half, and that's just going to be this last little bit here in this section. Again, I'm going to label that as 25 to 39. And then the last section, I'll go for pink, and that's going to be 40 plus. There we go, and there is our completed pie chart for when we're working with percentages. So then moving on to our next example. Now here we haven't got any lines drawn, but it's clear to see that we've got some marking. So here we can see that the circle is split up into 8 sections. So again, let me just write 8 sections. So working out the total of all of these, I've got which is going to add up to 1600, and that's the total. So what I've got is I've got 1600 people, I'm assuming, divided by 8, that equals 200. So it's going to be 200 per section. So from this, what they want to do is work out how many they're going to be in each section. So how many 200s going to 600, that's 3. How many 200s going to 400, that's 2. How many 200s go into 200, that's 1. And how many 200s go into 400, that's going to be 2. Now the key thing to note is that the size, as you can see, the frequency for both blue and yellow is the same, so those sections should be exactly the same. And also noticing that green is half the size of blue and yellow, so again that should be half the size, which looking at the section count is absolutely spot on. Now for this, what we need to do is draw our lines. So hopefully, again, I'm just emphasizing, now again, if I did have the points plotted up, just makes it easier for me rather than using a ruler. So here red is going to be 3 sections, so I could just colour that in red and just give it a quick label. Blue is 2, so again, and give that a label. Next one is green, which is 1. And the last one is yellow, which is 2. And conveniently, that's how many I've got left. And these are our completed pie chart. Now, as mentioned, they're probably more the basic values of where you're drawing a pie chart where it's already pre-drawn and it's split up into sections. Now, more often than not, particularly at secondary, you're going to be looking at secondary level, I should say, you're probably having to work out the angle yourself. Now, to do that, it's kind of looking at 3 stages. Now, the first stage may or may not be done for you. So here we've got to work out the total frequency. Then we've got to add an additional column. So where we added a section column, now we're going to have an angle column. And then to work out the size of the angle for each particular group, what I need to do is I need to use this formula. And this is a formula that we're going to be using to work out the angle. Now again, if you are going to be doing this on the calculator, just make sure that this is dividing. So again, one thing you might want to do on your calculator is enter it as frequency divided by the total frequency. Then on your calculator, press equals and then multiply by 360 rather than doing it in one way. You might find, but again, using common sense, you should be able to spot when an angle is incorrect on your calculator. So let's have a look at answering this particular question. So this question says students were asked what job they wanted when they were older. So again, first thing we need to do is work out what the total frequency is going to be. So first thing we need to do is work out what this is going to be, and I'm just going to label that total frequency. Now to do that, we just need to add the numbers up. So we've got 8 plus 2, which is 10, plus 6, 16, 18, and we get 24. So the next thing I then need to do is add an angle column. Now to work out the angle, now again, excuse the neatness of this particular column, which is not that bad in terms of there. Now what I need to do is work out the angle for each of these columns. So for the doctor, it's going to be the frequency, which is 8, divided by 24. And again, I'm going to put that in brackets and I'm going to multiply that by 360. So if I enter that on my calculator, I get an answer of 120. Now for nurse, I do 2 divided by 24, multiply that by 360. And again, doing that on the calculator, I get an answer of 30. For lawyer, it's going to be 6 divided by 24, multiplied by 360, which is going to give me 90. Then for police officer, it's 2 divided by 24, multiplied by 360, which I've already done, but it's the same amount for nurse, so that's also going to be 30. And for the last one for teacher, that's going to be the same as lawyer, so 6 divided by 24, multiplied by 360, and I get an answer of 90. And there we go. And these are the angles that I then need to plot. So looking at question 1, what we need to do is we need to draw the pie chart. Now, in an exam, the circle will already be drawn for you. However, if you're doing this in class or for homework, then you may need to draw the circle yourself. Now, a good starting point, and one tip that I always recommend students to do, particularly if you're working on squared paper, is to start by drawing a dot in between the boxes. So you've got a line going in either direction. The next thing I would then recommend that you do is you draw a vertical line from that dot going upwards, because it's vertical. Now the next thing you then need to do is to set up your compass. Now make sure that your compass is not loose, and then when you are placing your pencil in your compass, make sure that when your compass is closed, you want the pencil to be as close as possible to the tip of your compass. So then, now the size of the circle is entirely up to you. Just notice that the bigger the circle, the easier it's going to be for you to draw your diagram, your lines. So again, just making sure compass does not slip. And there we go. And once you've got it into this sign, so it looks kind of like a power symbol on your remote control. But now if your line goes outside the circle, do not worry about it. You don't need to rub it out. That is absolutely fine. So going first, now the question that usually gets asked to me is, do I need to draw the angles in the order in which it shows in the table? Now there shouldn't make a difference. However, you might find it easier just to go down the list, and so you're not missing out any angles, which obviously should be evident by your diagram. So starting off with the first one now, looking at a protractor. Now most protractors are different. Now this one is probably the substandard one. Now the key thing you need to note is, where is the center of the protractor? Now your center of the protractor is the center point between 0 and 180. So the center point on this particular protractor has got a little circle for it. I think it's like a little magnifying glass, and that there is my center. Now whenever you are measuring an angle, the 0 needs to go on one of the lines. Now for a pie chart, the 0 always goes on the line you've just drawn. Now I've just drawn this line here, so I'm going to place a 0 at that particular point. So again, what I'm going to do is put the center of the protractor at the center of the circle. 0 is on the line I've just drawn, and I'm going to use the outside numbers obviously because they start at 0. Don't want to use the inside numbers because they start at 180, and I want to measure 120. Now 120 is an obtuse angle, so even if I did go for the inside numbers, that would give me an acute angle. So using my common sense, I would know that that is wrong. So once I've marked where 120 is, the next thing I then want to do is, with a straight edge, preferably with a ruler, you want to draw a line from the center to that mark. Now it doesn't matter again if it goes over to the actual mark, that's absolutely fine. And again, once you've completed one of the sections, it's worth just labeling, because you do get a mark for labeling your sections on your pie chart. Now again, the next one is nurse. So again, center of my protractor at the center of the circle, 0 on the line I've just drawn, and I'm going to use the outside numbers to mark where 30 degrees is, and then again repeat the process of drawing a line, and that there is nurse. So the next one I then need to plot is lawyer, which is 6, and that's 90 degrees. So again, looking at a right angle, so recognizing what that should look like. So 90 degrees is there. Now it is important that you do take your time and be as accurate as possible. Now these angles are not too bad because they're all multiples of 10, but if you do get a more complicated pie chart, then that is something that you do need to bear in mind. And again, I'm just going to label that as a lawyer. The next thing I've then got to do is measure where 30 degrees is. So again, using my protractor, 0 on the line I've just drawn, and mark where 30 degrees is, and then draw a line through that. Now if I've done everything correctly, and just label this police officer. Now if I've done this correctly, I shouldn't have to measure the last one, which is teacher, and again, but if I wanted to, again, 0 on the line I've just drawn, and that should be exactly to where it needs to be, which it is, and I can just label that as teacher. Now because I've labelled it, I don't need to colour it in. However, in an exam, I strongly urge you to make sure that you do label each of the sections. Now a question that usually gets asked is, how accurate do I need to be? Will people marking my pie chart be actually measuring with a protractor or angle measurer the actual angles? Well, technically no, but usually in a mark scheme, what would happen is that a teacher or an exam board would give you a piece of tracing paper which has got the correct answer in the order in which it's written in the table, and all the teacher would do was place that tracing paper over your diagram. If it fits perfectly and everything's all in line, full marks. If it isn't, they'll be clear to see which angles are incorrect. So moving on to question 2, I'm going to do the exact same process. The first thing I'm going to do is work out what the total frequency is going to be. So let's first of all not use such a chunky pen. Let's start again. So with question 2, the question says that a group of students were asked what subject they enjoyed the most. So the first thing I need to do, I notice that I need to work out what the total frequency is going to be. So if I add up all of these numbers, I get a total of 15 plus 10 plus 8 plus 4 plus 3 gives me an answer of 40. So the next thing I then need to do is work out what the angle is going to be. So for angle for maths, that's going to be 15 divided by 40 multiplied by 360. So again, type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 135 degrees. For English, I'm going to do, let's use a different colour to make it stand out so you know which ones I'm doing when. So for English, it's going to be 10 divided by 40 multiplied by 360, which gives me an angle of 90 degrees. For art, that's going to be 8 divided by 40 multiplied by 360, so 8 divided by 40 multiplied by 360 gives me an answer of 72 degrees. Then for history, it's going to be 4 divided by 40 multiplied by 360, which gives me an answer of 36 degrees. And finally, I'm going to do 3 divided by 40 multiplied by 360. That gives me an answer of 27 degrees. So looking at question 2, so again I've got my angles calculated. Now this one, the numbers for the angles aren't as nice, so I just need to take a little bit extra care when I'm using my protractor. So again, just like the first question, the first thing I'm going to do, I don't have a circle, so I need to draw one, but I'm going to start by placing a small dot in the space that I've got, and I'm going to draw a vertical line from that to the dot I've just drawn. Now once I've done that, then I want to set my compass up. So again, making sure that the tip of your pencil is as close as possible to the tip of your compass. And again, trying not to injure yourself. And then I'm going to place the pin at the center of the dot which I've just drawn, and then just twizzle the compass around to draw your circle. So again, from this, the 0 always goes on the line you've just drawn. So again, I'm going to put 0, center of the protractor on the center of the circle. And then again, I'm just going to mark where 135 is, which is an obtuse angle. So again, using the outside numbers. And then with that dot, and then I'm going to join that up with the center of the circle. And I can then label that as maths. And the next one is English, which is 90 degrees. So this one should be relatively quite easy because it's just a perfect right angle. It's all about practice. You want to practice drawing these. And again, what's always good is when you have completed your pie chart to look at the angles, just ask someone to measure and just check those angles for you. So that there is English. Now you could label inside the pie chart, doesn't really make a difference. Now the next one is 72 degrees. Now this one, I'm just going to have to take a little bit of extra time. Again, matching everything up, center of the protractor, center of the circle, 0 on the line I've just drawn. Using the outside numbers, I need to find 72, which is there. And again, I'm going to draw a line from that mark to the center. And again, I'm going to label that as alt. Then for the next one, I've got 36 degrees. So again, just twizzle the protractor around, center of the protractor, 0 on the center circle, and then 0 on the line I've just drawn. And I'm going to do 36, which is about there, and then draw there, and that there is history. And then to double check, just place your protractor, and that should be 27, and that is absolutely spot on, and that there is my final angle, and there is my completed pie chart. Now it is always useful to work out proportion of the frequency compared to the total frequency, and by doing this it makes it easier for you to find the percentage in where you multiply the proportion by 100 or the size of the angle for a pie chart, in which we multiply the proportion by 360. Now I will put some practice questions and their answers in the description below for you to practice drawing a pie chart.